You just bought a piece of the most powerful financial institution on earth. Not a bank, not a company. The machine that decides how much every dollar in your wallet is actually worth. For a moment, imagine it. The interest rate on every mortgage in the country moves because of a decision made in a room you now have a seat in. Governments watch your meetings. Markets hold their breath before your announcements. The same economists who once explained the world to you now wait for you to explain it to them. That is the dream. And the dream is only half true. Because what you think you bought is not what you actually own. You think you bought control of the money supply. You think you bought a printing press with your name on it. You did not. Within the first minute of owning this thing, you realize the deed in your hand does not say what you thought it said. So what did you actually buy? A central bank is not a vault of gold. It is not a corporation with a stock ticker. It is a machine that turns trust into stability, and stability into the invisible foundation every other market stands on. You did not buy money. You bought the plumbing money runs through. Here is how people actually enter this world, because yes, ownership here is real, just not in the way you imagine. Tier 1 is the smallest entry point. A community bank joins the Federal Reserve System and is required to buy stock in its regional reserve bank, equal to a small percentage of its own capital. This costs a modest bank a few $100,000. You get a certificate. You get almost no say. Tier 2 is a mid-sized regional bank, holding millions in that same stock. You now get to vote for some of the directors at your regional reserve bank. Real seats, real meetings, still no control over interest rates. Tier 3 is a major national bank, holding tens of millions in required stock across multiple regions. You sit closer to the architecture now. You watch policy from the inside. You still cannot set it. Tier 4 is the illusion people chase in every conspiracy documentary. Total ownership, total control, one person or one family running the whole machine. It does not exist. It has never existed. And that is the twist nobody tells you before you buy in. The question is not whether you can buy a piece of this system. The question is whether owning a piece gives you what you actually wanted. So what does ownership give you? Your stock in a regional reserve bank pays a dividend fixed by law. For decades, that rate sat at 6%. A law passed in 2015 changed it for the largest banks, tying their dividend instead to the yield on the 10-year Treasury bond, whichever is lower. You do not get upside. You do not get a rising share price. You get a quiet, capped, government-set return year after year, no matter how well the system performs. That is what the asset gives you. Now comes what it demands from you. Before a single dollar of that dividend arrives, this machine costs a staggering amount to run every single day. 12 regional reserve banks, thousands of employees, vaults, armored trucks, and cash processing centers moving physical currency across the country every hour. Economists, examiners, cybersecurity teams defending against nation-state level attacks. The system's combined operating budget runs into billions of dollars a year, funded entirely from its own operations, not from taxpayers and not from you. It does not matter whether the economy is calm or the economy is on fire. The lights stay on, the staff get paid, the armored trucks still roll. Now here is the trapdoor nobody warns you about. Your stock cannot be sold. It cannot be traded. It cannot be used as collateral for a loan. It is not stock in the way Wall Street means stock. It exists purely so member banks are legally bound into the system permanently with a capped reward and zero exit ramp. Regulators designed it this way on purpose so that no bank and no individual could ever accumulate enough of it to seize control from the inside. The very thing that looks like ownership is actually a leash. Remember what you thought you bought? You thought you bought a machine that prints wealth for its owners. What you actually bought was a machine that prints wealth for the public and hands you a small, fixed thank you fee for participating. Nearly all of the profit generated by this system, the interest earned on trillions of dollars in government securities, gets sent straight to the United States Treasury. Not to you, not to shareholders, to the federal government, to help fund the country everyone else lives in. In strong years, that number has exceeded $90 billion flowing out to the Treasury in a single 12-month period. The team is not the product. The public trust behind the currency is the product. Now let the failure story land. In 2022 and 2023, interest rates rose faster than they had in 4 decades. The system had spent years buying enormous quantities of government bonds and mortgage securities at low rates to support the economy through a global crisis. When rates spiked, the interest it now had to pay out on reserves and short-term borrowing suddenly exceeded the interest it was earning on those older, lower-yielding bonds. For the first time in modern history, the machine began operating at a loss, month after month. It did not go bankrupt. It cannot go bankrupt the way a company can. Instead, it recorded the shortfall as a deferred asset, an IOU to itself, quietly climbing past $100 billion, with no payments to the Treasury resuming until that internal debt is paid down first. Money can build the most trusted machine in the world. Money cannot protect it from the very rates it is responsible for setting. Now walk through your ownership math. In the optimistic scenario, rates stay stable, the bond portfolio performs, the dividend arrives on schedule, and your slice of the system quietly earns its capped return year after year, like clockwork. In the reality scenario, rates move sharply in either direction, your regional reserve bank posts a paper loss, and your dividend still gets paid. But the surplus that used to flow to the public treasury disappears for years, while the deferred asset gets worked off first. The same machine that stabilizes an entire economy can also quietly run a deficit no headline fully explains. You are not buying a central bank. You are buying a seat inside the machine that decides what your own money is worth, with a fixed paycheck, no exit, and no real control ever. The dream was real. Wanting the seat, wanting the influence, wanting to understand the room where the decisions get made, that instinct is human. The reality is deeper. Real power here was never about ownership. It was about trust, engineered so carefully that no single owner, however rich, could ever hold all of it. And that is only one machine hidden behind modern power. Every empire has a system most people never see. The airline, the stadium, the island. The question is always the same. What happens after you own it? Subscribe if you want to keep stepping inside the world's most powerful assets. If you had a seat at that table tomorrow, what is the first question you would actually ask?